Given the function f of x, we're asked to define or determine the vertical asymptote and sketch the graph near the asymptote. All right, so where do we have an asymptote? So if you remember from math 30-1, and a little of 30-2 as well, it's going to be where our function is undefined. Now, that won't always result in an asymptote. So if you remember, let's say if I had, let's say, x plus 2 over x plus 2, x minus 3, you're not going to have an asymptote at -2 in this case because it cancels out, right? You're going to have a hole or a point of discontinuity at that one. But we will have an asymptote if there's any factors that remain after you cancel, right? All right, so in this case, it's not actually that messy because nothing's going to cancel. We just have x plus 3 in the denominator. And this is really x plus 3 times x plus 3, so it's just written twice. But for the most part, x cannot equal -3, right? We have a vertical asymptote at x is equal to -3. Okay, so let's draw that in. So at -3, we know we have an asymptote. Now what's left to figure out is what's happening on either side. Is it like approaching, like on the left side, is it approaching infinity, or is it approaching negative infinity? And the same on the right side. So if we want to figure out what's happening there, what we want to do is we want to take the limit. We want to take the limit as x approaches -3, but then we're going to approach it from the left. So a little negative sign up in the top there, right? So I'll say the limit, and then it's of the function. So 5 over x plus 3 squared. All right, so now, how do we figure out which way it's going? Well, we kind of just put in like a little sample point here, right? So I can just picture, so if I'm approaching -3 from the left, then I could throw in a number here like -3.1, right? Because -3, like that's a little to the left, a little more negative. So if we did that, here, let's write this again. So now limit as x approaches -3 from the left of 5 over, and then, yeah, just imagine that we're putting in a number like 3 point, 3 point like 0, like even like 0, like very, very close to 3, 0, 0, 1, something like that, very small number, and sorry, negative, plus 3 squared. And then just think for a minute, what kind of number are you getting out of this, right? So negative 3.00001, this is giving us and then plus 3, this is giving us a negative number in the bottom. And it's also giving us a very, very small negative number in the bottom, right? So we can write that. So this is giving us like a small negative, okay? And it's squared, which actually just ends up making it even smaller, right? If you take a very, very small number and square it, it actually gives you an even smaller number. Okay, so then from there, let's just think about this. So now we've got the limit as x approaches -3 from the left. And then, yeah, just think about like what happens with this squared. Well, it becomes positive, right? So it was negative, but then if you square a negative, it just becomes positive. So now we just have 5 over some very, very small number, even smaller than it was before. Small positive number, though, because we squared it. Then what happens here is that like 5 over like a vanishingly small number actually gives us infinity. So in the end here, this is equal to either, you can say it does not exist, but really it's infinity. You can be, it's both, right? So like it doesn't exist, but then for being useful, we can actually say which way it goes. So what's happening here is we know that close to this, it's actually starting to approach positive infinity. Okay? So we know that that's the case on that one. Now from the other side, we're just going to do the same thing and say, okay, the limit as x approaches -3 from the right this time. And then that would be 5 over x plus 3 squared. So now to the right of -3 would be like 2.999999, right? So that's going to be like, so 2.99999 plus 3, that's going to give us a positive number, and then we're going to square it, so it's still going to be positive. So we've really got the limit as x approaches -3 from the right of 5 over some very small positive number. Okay, so again, this is going to be, does not exist or positive infinity. So what this is telling us is that, yeah, so on the other side as well, our graph is approaching infinity. And now, we haven't officially done horizontal asymptotes, but maybe you can guess. This graph would approach 0. And if you're unsure about that, we're going to talk more about that in later lessons. But we did we sketched the graph on either side near the asymptote.